In this video, we are going to talk about the Greco Gambit trap, which is very interesting and it actually maximizes your winning chances if you are a lower or the intermediate level player. So let's check it out. So first of all, white starts the game with 1 e4 and black responds with e5. And soon we have the Goko piano opening on the board where black plays bishop to c5. And after playing bishop c5, white is actually having many options in the position, but to play the Greco Gambit, white responds with c3. Black plays knight to f6. There are two ideas from the black side. First of all, the knight on f6 is hitting the pawn on e4, and second, black wants to castle in the next move. So white simply continues with his plan by playing d4 and having a pretty nice pawn structure, and also hitting the bishop on c5. We have a pawn trade, and in this position, the knight on f6 cannot capture the pawn on e4 because the bishop is hanging on c5. So the most natural move for black in this position looks to play bishop to b4 and giving a check to the white king. And black is preparing to capture the pawn on e4 with the knight on the next move. So we have knight to c3, and now we have knight into e4. So then now the knight on c3 cannot capture the knight on e4 because the knight on c3 is actually pinned by the bishop on b4. So after playing knight into e4, white simply castles in the position, and here comes the critical move for black to make a critical decision. In this position, black is having the two options. He can either capture the knight with the bishop or with the knight. So you can also take your time and tell me which move are you going to play in the position. And so first of all, the maximum chances for black to continue the position, and you can see the most natural move for black to continue the position is to capture the knight with the knight. There are two reasons. After b into c3, bishop into c3, not only you gain a pawn, but also now you are hitting the rook on a1. And third, you are also controlling the e1 square, which is very important for the black, because now there are not going to be some rook e1 ideas giving a check to the black king. But this is actually what white wanted. In the position, capturing the knight with the bishop was actually a much better move. I'm going to tell you why. After bishop into c3, now white is having a very legendary move and a very powerful move, which is bishop to a3, simply developing the bishop. And the idea of playing bishop a3 is, now black can no longer castle because the bishop on a3 is covering the f8 square. So after bishop into a1, first of all, there are total three options in the position. You can either capture the rook, black can either play d5, or black can either play d6, covering the dark squares. And after the idea of playing d5 is to hit the bishop on c4. So let's talk about what will happen if black tries to capture the rook on a1. Now white is simply going to play rook to e1 check, knight to e7, rook into e7. Now you cannot capture the rook because the bishop is simply going to capture the queen on e7. We have king f8, rook into f7 check. If king g8, we have rook into d7, and we have a pretty nice mate to the black king. And after playing rook f7 check, if black tries to play king to e8, then after queen e1 check, queen e7, queen into 7 is already game over. So that is the reason black cannot capture the rook on a1 in the position. What will happen if black tries to play d5 in the position? If black tries to play d5, hitting the bishop on c4, then white is simply going to play bishop b5, pinning up the knight on c6. Black is going to capture the rook on a1, and now we have rook to e1 check again. Bishop e6, and now we have queen to c2. And now it's a double attack to the knight on c6. And the best move for black to continue the position is to play queen to d7, giving some protection to the knight on c6. But now comes the legendary move by white, knight e5. Simply hitting the queen on d7, also hitting the knight on c6. You cannot capture the knight because the queen is hanging. But actually, the best move according to Engine is to capture the knight on e5. And after bishop into d7 check, knight into d7, rook into a1, and it's basically rook bishop versus a queen, which gives a completely winning position to white. So this is what happens if black tries to play d5. Now let's talk about the final move, what will happen if black tries to play d6. If black tries to play d6 in a position, then white is simply going to play rook to c1, hitting the bishop. We have bishop to a5, a fourth move by black, and now we simply jump with the queen on a4, pinning up the knight. And white idea is to play d5, or you can simply play bishop to d5. Idea is to capture the knight, and on the next move, white wants to capture the bishop on a5. First of all, if you try to play bishop b6, I'm simply going to play d5, hitting the knight. You cannot move the knight from the c6 square because it's a pin. And second, if you try to play bishop to d7 in the position, I'm still going to play d5, and after playing knight to d4, queen into a5, knight into f3 check, g into f3, and now white is simply a piece plus, which gives a completely winning advantage to white. So this was all the possibilities black could play, and white can simply easily win the game in the Greco Gambit trap. So if I talk about where black went wrong, was in this position. In this position, where black decided to capture the knight with the knight was actually a mistake. In the position, a much better move was to capture the knight with the bishop, because after b into c3, black is going to play d5, hitting the bishop and now also opening up the light square bishop from the c8 square. And after playing bishop d3, you are going to castle, not going to capture the pawn, because after castle, black is still a pawn up. But okay, white can play queen c2 followed by bishop a3, and white is having the bishop pair, but you are also pawn up, which actually gives a better advantage to black in this position. So this was the reason why this trap is not played in the high level, because after bishop into c3, b into c3, knight into first d5, bishop d3 castle, this is much better position for black. But if you are a lower, or you can say if you are a new chess player, or if you are intermediate level chess player, then you can definitely try this opening in your tournaments or in your online games. So I hope you all the best to try out this interesting gambit. So first of all, if you learned something, then make sure to like the video, share this video with everyone so that they would also get helped by you and me for learning this interesting Greco Gambit trap. And make sure to subscribe the channel if you haven't done it, because I'm going to come up with these interesting chess videos like this. So till then, stay tuned and keep watching One Shot Chess.